Hello, welcome back again. We're going to be continuing with Vigny this week. We've covered a lot of the basic technique, but one of the things we haven't really looked at and does crop up in the material we're studying is using the cane with both hands. Now with that, I don't mean that we're going to turn it into something shillelagh or even something weird, kind of like, almost like quarterstaff when you're doing these big strikes across here. That's not the kind of thing I'm talking about at all. Instead, what we're going to be doing is just using it to increase this capacity that cane has to make it very hard for our opponent to predict what we're going to do. And we're going to do this. Let's start with a fairly simple example. If we're both in guard, the Michael comes in to strike my head. Yeah? And we've already looked at the fact that I would normally collapse this back on my way around to deliver my strike here, and that will it. But what I can do is, as that comes down, is switch to both hands taking this block. Now there might be multiple reasons I want to do this. One of them could be that, this is not Michael swinging a cane at me, but somebody coming in with a baseball bat, and I feel I need more than one hand as a pivot point. I need to really put some power to stop that coming in. So I may need more stopping power in my parry, and this helps with that. The other option is, because from here, I can get my stronger parry, I can let go with the bottom and continue my strike through as I would. However, the other option I have is when that strike comes in, is I can take this here, I could let go with the top hand and deliver a sneaky low strike underneath in the rear here. So it allows me to change hand as well as get a stronger block. And that allows me to do different things, such as an attack coming here. If we look at what we were looking at, I can't remember which one it was when we're looking at hooks, I can let go of the bottom, take a strike to the knee, but equally with that same technique, I can let go here and take a strike to the head. So depending on which target I want, I might decide which hand I let go with. And obviously I can do that on the other side as well, just for second visibility. If I'm here and my elbows become available, I can take my block here, yeah? And from here, I've got my option to either continue as I would normally, or to let go and come with a strike on the low line. I probably have to use the other hand to protect my face just from that frame there. So what it does also allow me to do, if that attack comes back in again or something, from here, what I have is both of the parries. I've got my high parry that we've looked at most of the time, but if I let go with the top hand, I've actually got the alternate parries we looked at either last week or the week before. So it's a way of me moving into those alternate parries as well, is I can use two hands. Obviously this works if the attack's coming straight down as well. I can take my block here, so I'm collecting with both hands, and then I can choose to come off with my on hand or my off hand with equal measure. Or I can even just choose to ram the cane straight down into my opponent's knuckles. All of those are viable options that are allowed to work from this two-handed stance. So it's worth being aware that those exist, and also being aware that there's actually, sorry, can we switch back around here just for sake of ease? There's actually no, it also depends on what it is. If the attack comes in here, let me explain it. Better if I explain it. From here, this is where I'd normally go to, because this is my high here and my low here. This is where I would normally go with the defense, because it's the one that I'm used to doing with one hand. However, there's absolutely nothing to stop me going here and using the alternate parry with my main hand and the high parry with my off hand. Yeah? So equally viable, and all of them just gives me more options of where it is I want to strike at my opponent. So again, it just makes it even harder for him to predict where I'm going to go. So I've got all my TikToks, I've got my high-low, all of the stuff we've been looking at, but also I can switch the cane from hand to hand anytime that I do a defensive maneuver. So again, that just makes it harder for my opponent to know what they're defending against. If we take this to its kind of final conclusion, I'm going to switch it around here. We have been experimenting a bit with this. One option then for coming on guard is, rather than having my guard here in a very defensive, I want to keep my opponent at bay, and I want to protect my head. If I am more confident in my technique and want to be more aggressive, instead I can choose to come on guard here. And the reason of coming on guard here is that I've got a hand above and below, I'm actually bracing the cane across the back of my arm. So when I let go with my bottom hand, that comes out with quite some force. Equally, if I let go with the top hand, that comes out with quite some force. So I've got it coiled and ready to spring. So from here, if my opponent is attacked in onto the side as they would normally do, coming into my neck, I've got that parry coiled to really spring out with quite some wallop. And then I can look to move in or whatever from there. But equally, if my opponent is not expecting it from here, that strike to the hand can come very quickly and with a lot of power. Yeah? But equally, if an attack's coming in on this side, I might equally decide to raise my hand and take it in the guard here, and even then step underneath before taking my strike across. So it's just an alternate way, if I want to, of confusing my opponent. If I want to go really to the nth degree on this, I start using that pass behind the arm as part of my tactics, so I can attack high, my opponent parries, rather than as they might be normally expecting, I'm going to change the line, I'm going to pass it behind my arm brace, and then strike low. It requires a bit of training, but again, it just confuses my opponent. And if they don't know where the attack's coming, they can't parry it. So if you're trying to cover everything at once, it's much easier to sneak an attack through. So hopefully you found that interesting. That's using two hands with the cane, the double-handed techniques. And we will catch you again next week, where we're going to be looking at multiple opponents. So that's going to be a bit more complicated, but we'll pick up on that next week. Okay, take care.